So, yes, this is the ninth Mahavidya that we will be discussing today. After this one, only one left to go. And so today we talk about Matangi, which is the deity that very much resembles Saraswati, which is the goddess of art and literature and poetry and music. And so Matangi, in a way, is Saraswati, but she is also a little bit different and more fitting within the Mahavidyas as being part of the yogic journey. No? Saraswati, as a goddess of art, etc., is just part of life. No? So that is different. Here we have Matangi, where art and all that which is related to art is more put in a yogic perspective. And I think I'll first start sharing the screen so that you have some idea what this lady looks like. So we see there Matangi sitting on her throne, and we see many symbols that relate also to Saraswati, and especially the veena, the musical instrument that she is holding. For people who don't know a veena, this is an older instrument resembling a sitar, but it has two gourds. No, sitar only has one, and it is especially used in the Drupad singing, which is a very nice way of, you can say, meditative chanting and music making that is present in India. And we also see a parrot, which stands for poetry. And when you look on the other side to the yantra, there you see other symbols like the peacock and the swan, which are all related to particular aspects of art or poetry, etc. So that's what Matangi, anyhow, as I said, is about. But she is also called the Dark One because usually her colors are more dark compared to Saraswati, who is always shown in more white or light blue color. And as I said, yes, Saraswati is just part of life as art is part of life. And the subject, I would say, of the art that relates to Saraswati is the divine. No? So there we find mostly paintings of the divine, texts that are describing the divine, etc. And that is a little bit different than with Matangi, who is more also including, I would say, normal life, no, in the art, but always, of course, from a yogic perspective, but not just showing things which are like totally beautiful and harmonious and so on. No? But anyhow, both they have to do with inspiration, divine inspiration. This is also called pratibha. Divine inspiration, which means something which comes from inside, from, you could say, the self, from inner silence, and from there we are seeing an image or finding some words which make a poetry, and in that way we are creating a different kind of understanding, both in the one who is creating the art as in the one who is then maybe looking at it or listening to the music or hearing the poetry. An understanding which is not so much on the rational level, on the level of conceptualization, but truly on a feeling level, where a certain truth or a certain value, we feel it better than we could when it is just being, described in a rational way in words. So here, Matangi is often also named the aid or helper of Tripura Sundari. Tripura Sundari, you will remember, is the one who teaches us that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. No? If you are feeling good inside, then whatever you see outside will automatically look beautiful and agreeable. And if you're not feeling very good inside, then whatever is in front of you, you will not so much like it. So it teaches you that there you can find beauty. So Matangi then helps Tripura Sundari and helps us to not just see beauty, but also create beauty. And in a way, it is the same thing. When we can see it and we can also create it. So they are quite related. And Matangi is also related to Baglamukhi, which we saw last time. Baglamukhi being about speech, but there we are more talking about argumentation, about rational thought, about taking the demon by the tongue and stopping his nonsense talk, his egoic talk, and turning the argument around and bring it in another direction. So there we use speech, and here also very often speech is used, but imagery is used, poetry is used, but so in a very different way, in a very creative way. And it is in that way also important to understand that Saraswati is the wife of Brahma, Lord Brahma, who is the creator. Now, you can say that compared to other religions where the creator is usually seen as, the number one, if you look at Brahma in India, then this is not so. You don't find many temples associated with Brahma. You don't find Brahma in many temples. And it is a little bit because the Indian people feel, okay, the guy has already done his job. He has created the whole universe. So we can honor him for that, being, an old wise man with a long beard. We can honor him, but we cannot expect so much from him anymore. So why worship him? Why do any temples for him and so on? This is a little bit the attitude, nothing disrespecting, but in a way a little bit like common sense. But then Saraswati or Matangi, as the spouse of Brahma, is very often worshipped, is found in most temples, and there are also many temples for Saraswati, because Saraswati is still creating. Within creation, also a lot of creation is still possible. And so knowing that this power of creativity is an important power, people worship her so that also in their own lives they can become a little bit more creative. So you could compare it, for example, to a couple where the husband has made a kitchen, and maybe he spent one day on making that kitchen, or 2 days, 3 days, doesn't matter. It's always going to be much less than the wife who's going to, in a traditional role model, who is going to cook in it for the rest of their lives. So then the visitors, when they are there enjoying a meal, they will not so much think to thank the husband for creating the kitchen, they will thank the wife for making the food. So it's a little bit in the same way. And I thought to show you also Saraswati here, just to show a little bit the different look. As I said, very white, light blue. These are the colors mostly associated with her. Maybe a little bit of light green might also be there. And sitting on the swan, this is her typical, mount, which also describes a little bit her character. And then on the other side, I've shown another picture where you see Triveni, where in the middle you find Saraswati, and then on one side with a more reddish dress you see Yamuna, and on the other side with a more bluish color you see Ganga. So these are three rivers, Yamuna, Ganga, and Saraswati, though Saraswati is what they call a mythical river. which is not seen, no, and maybe is underground, you could say. And at some point, they all three meet. No? Anyhow, Ganga and Yamuna, they meet, and Saraswati is supposed to meet there also in the city of Allahabad, where a major Kumbh Mela also takes place every, I don't remember how many years, every 12 years, I think. But so this symbolizes the third eye, where Ida and Pingala, the solar and the lunar channel, which are here symbolized by Yamuna and Ganga, they join and they become neutral. They become the neutral channel of Sushumna, which is Saraswati. Because creativity is something which comes from this neutral energy. The real creativity, the real intelligence also, the real seeing, the real understanding, which is, you could say, beyond words, no, is found there in the third eye, in the neutral channel, when, we stop thinking and from this silence get this Saraswati energy, and from there a lot of creativity can come forward. So when I talk about Matangi, I also need first maybe a little bit to talk about Saraswati, because to correctly understand Matangi, it's good to understand Saraswati. And as I said, the subject of Saraswati is the divine in all its forms, in all its varieties, all these gods, all these goddesses, all these stories also, that are there, all these paintings and sculptures, all these bhajans and mantras and music, so much is there, in Indian culture. And as I said, they are supposed to bring a deeper understanding, a deeper sensing of the truth, or the different aspects also of the past and so on. And this is very important, as I said, both for the one creating it as for the one hearing it, because the rational, it has many disadvantages in a way. Like I could say, when people feel connected to each other, which we could call love, then, they will much more enjoy whatever is happening, either in the body or in the mind or in the soul, or, I can make a whole explanation like that, and I'm not saying that is without, value. But if I just say love is the spice of life, then I'm being much more clear in a way, while also at the same time being a little bit unclear. There is a big advantage when in what we are saying we can be a little bit unclear, because then everybody can understand it in their own way. The moment we try to be very precise in what we are saying, very rational, very scientific, you could say, and especially then when we're talking about spiritual issues, then that always creates a lot of problems, because everything which we say, it can be then easily doubted. But when I say love is the spice of life, then I'm using this word spice as a symbol for something, which, okay, everybody knows, but where anyhow people will have a different feeling of what I'm really saying. And the main thing that they will get is the essence of what I'm saying. And they'll not get stuck in the details of it, where they might have a different experience, where they might have a different opinion, where they might doubt it. So in that way, to teach also is truly an art form, and is also the most effective if we can speak a little bit more in terms that have a broad meaning, so that we allow everybody to understand it in their own way. It's not like you people all have to understand what I'm saying in my way, You understand the essence. That is the main thing. Anyhow, how we understand something, it changes all the time. but the essence of it should not change, especially not of these important things like love is the spice of life. So in that way, no, it is an art, and an art that means that some inspiration has to come. And so Saraswati, Matangi, they are this inspiration. They are, you can say, the muse, no? They are the power of inspiration, the energy of inspiration, and that is what is then called also true intelligence. The word intelligence actually in English has a bit of a different meaning than buddhi, no? Which is the origin of that word, than in Sanskrit, where now we see intelligence as the capacity to understand, to rationalize, to conceptualize, to make a good story. While there it is seen as something much beyond that. It is a feeling, it is an understanding of the essence, and the ability also to communicate that in a way that other people are going to understand. So to work with this energy of Saraswati is like a channeling of divine inspiration coming from buddhi, which is the cosmic intellect, no? Which is not my personal intellect or your personal intellect, no? It is something quite beyond, no? which makes that happen. And where anyhow also, for example, spiritual beings from different planes of existence from the spiritual world can inspire us, and where artists will gather a kind of like audience, not just in the physical world, but also in the spiritual world, and that audience will at the same time also inspire that artist, inspire that musician, and that is of course then a beautiful thing, and is a little bit also then what is being tried or being promoted through the tantric practice with Matangi, to get that kind of audience and that kind of inspiration, which very much works through this Sushumna Nadi. And in that way it becomes also a yoga, to be able to be empty, to be able to be in total balance, so that solar and lunar are not disturbing the signal that comes in from the buddhi, from the spiritual world, from the cosmic mind. That is really a yoga which very much involves this Sushumna Nadi that I was talking about, this neutral energy channel. It is only through this channel that comes, not through the solar channel or through the lunar channel. So this is very useful, and that kind of teaching or communication, that kind of art or poetry, is also so much more easy to remember. When I talk for 1.5 hours about the importance of love, that's very hard to remember. But when I say love is the spice of life, that is very easy to remember. And that is the essence anyhow of what I've been talking about for 1.5 hours. So that is the importance of it. We can remember it better. We can in a way also get it before actually getting it. That is another part of it. Like sometimes a teacher will say something like that, and you'll understand it and you'll see the essence of it, but the details may not be so very clear yet. The total story may not be so very clear. That may require still some own experience and working maybe also with this knowledge. But you will know it, you will remember it, and that phrase or that picture or whatever it is will come back to you at the times when you are thinking about it, and so you will always get the essence right. So in that way it's very important, and also because of course we have these two sides of the brain. One side which works inwards, where the rational thinking is taking place, and the other side which works in images and also in melodies, in everything which is more emotional. So if you really want to understand something, you need these both sides. Just imagine that I would give these classes and never show any picture of these Mahavidyas. No? That would be different. Would be a different kind of understanding that you would have. These pictures also, they give you something. Just imagine the 60s without music, without the Beatles and the other rock bands, of that time. It would have been totally different. Or the punk period where I was growing up in, without Sid Vicious and all these punk stars, it would have been very different if they would not have been there. And it's not that they were giving lectures, no? It's not that they were explaining so very much, maybe an interview now and then, but the main thing, was their music and the text of their songs, which were poetry, and which were bringing across a certain understanding, which at that time, was very important and mobilized the whole generation, no? And this is still happening in many ways, no? We have to understand, no, why are the Vedas and many of the old texts coming in verse form? Okay, there's some rational reasons for that, no, in the sense of being in verse form, they could easily be remembered, learned by heart, which was the old way anyhow. They could also easily be checked, like there's a certain meter to it, so if somebody would copy these texts and make an error, afterwards you could detect that. So there may be even some part of it where you can say, okay, they are a little bit hiding the truth, so that people only find out when they have the proper experience themselves. This is also a part of it. But the main part of it is that it is in that way that it existed for so long, that it inspired for so long, and that it allowed everybody to have a little bit also their own opinion about it, to interpret it in their own way. And as I said, that is something which also changes. So that is what Saraswati is about. And then when we come to Matangi, we find there Saraswati very much in the same way. Only one big difference which is there is that Matangi means that she is the daughter of a saint named Matang. And in the story, this Matang was from the lowest caste, and somehow, anyhow, invited Saraswati to become his daughter, which she did, and to bring there in the lowest caste, the art and the poetry and the music and all that. So the big difference is that Matangi, she knows poverty, she knows impurity, she knows the darkness of life, she knows the suffering, she knows, that some things are not so easy. And so in that way, Matangi's art and music and poetry are mostly meant to lift us up out of the mud, you can say, to bring us out of this situation without necessarily changing, the social status of a person, but changing the way of being of a person, and inspiring us to see beyond material existence, and inspire us to seek the self, to seek the truth, and to grow spiritually. So in that way, she is much more recognizable also to people. When Saraswati, there's somebody flying around. When Saraswati is, showing all this beauty and this divinity and this, absolute truth and wow, and for many people it's a little bit like way out there. They cannot connect because it does not connect to their life, to their struggles, to how they feel maybe. So that way, Matangi is different. And I always also, let's say as a teacher, because as a teacher you're also faced with these things, much more could relate to Matangi than to Saraswati, because I like whatever I teach to be understandable from a normal viewpoint, like, to include the humane, to include life as it is and the problems that we have, and not just talk about, let's say, the self and cosmic consciousness and all these things, but also see maybe, okay, if you're angry, what to do, no? And how to cook, and all these, more down to earth aspects of it. Still also at the same time trying to maintain the essence of creative inspiration, which means that when I teach, I try not to prepare too much. If I would prepare too much, then everything would become very rational, and there would be no more room for things coming out of my mouth just like that. And so that's a different kind of teaching again, which I very much learned and copied, let's say, from Harish Johari, who would always teach like that. He would never prepare a class. I do a little bit of preparation. At least I know a little bit what I'm going to talk about and when, more or less, in some order. But I like to keep it quite in the moment. It's in the moment that the truth comes. And it is in the moment then also that we can be really understood by others. So that is what we are here. So Matangi, she's a little bit like a punk, you can say, a little bit like the crazy artist living in the forest or living in a caravan somewhere, or, doing her own thing. For example, in worshipping Matangi, she is like the only goddess I know where one gives leftover foods as an offering in the temple, which is something never done with the other gods and goddesses. But that is very common with Matangi, because as an artist, she is not trying to become very popular and rich. She is trying to create something of real value, and she'll accept your leftover food, just to stay alive. Like also, say, a monk, a sadhu will accept it. And so she's very well known also for getting in a certain trance, like an artistic trance, which I'm sure everybody who has been into art of some kind knows about. This kind of obsession that you have at that time. You're totally into it. You're only seeing that, and you forget to eat. And it's like that is Matangi, a real artist. And she's not there to get rich. Now the rich, they have a different taste in art in general. I mean, I don't want to look at all rich people same way, but if you look on TV, these stories about rich people's cribs, they call it, I think, their houses, and then you see all this art for which they have paid artists, to make it, and it's all very beautiful and very grand, and in somewhat, reflecting the self-image that these people then have. But it has very little, real value, even to those people who bought it. And then I can imagine if you are a son or a daughter of such a person, and you grow up in that, let's say, palace, and, it all seems very unreal, because that in the palace not everybody is happy. Even the ones who are rich are not very happy, and then you have the ones serving them who may also not always be very happy, and the ones in the factories or on the fields creating the money to buy all this stuff, they may also not be also very happy. So they know that, and then they feel that this is fake, and that they need to make something that really shows reality. And that is actually very much also the kind of attitude and many artists here in modern society, you can say, have, is that they want to show the troubles of people, which is okay, but that they start focusing very much on the negative, which is not the objective. of this art. No? The art should be uplifting, not making everybody depressed. So we do not have to hide whatever suffering is there, whatever wrongdoing is there, or problems are there. But we have to kind of paint the dark and the light together so that the total is something uplifting. And that is very much so what Matangi is doing. And the relationship with poverty I find also very beautiful, because if you are poor, then you can be rich, and you can be rich in a number of ways. One is in sharing. That's how poor people, anyhow manage to come by. If you need a drilling machine, you can borrow it from the neighbor because he's using your laundry machine. Like this kind of sharing attitude, which we find a lot among poor people, is one way. But then definitely another way is art. For art, you don't need to be rich, you don't need money. You can make art with anything. If you cannot buy even a drum, you can take a stick of wood and start drumming on that. So there's no limit there. Art can be totally without cost, and is a great way to feel that your life is full of wealth, full of beauty, full of enjoyment. And then, of course, third way for a poor person is practice, spiritual practice, on meditation, things like that. They can bring you a lot of things which are totally free of cost. So that is one of the things I find very, very beautiful there. And in my earlier travels in India, I've really met many beautiful but really poor people. But they had fantastic lives. They were very much like hanging together, lots of love and lots of enjoyment, lots of art and music in the evening, things like that. Hard work also, but in a meditative way. The kind of repetitive work that you do on a field or in a kind of craft that you are doing. Nowadays, of course, the poor people, and also in India, I see that a lot. They are not happy because they are so much looking at becoming rich. They are continuously bombarded by advertising and other parts, like TV and internet and so on, which kind of create in them this desire to have what the rich people have. So then they are no longer, accepting their situation so much, and that way they feel unhappy. But there is also another way, another way, and Matangi for me represents that. So Matangi brings art as a great form of personal therapy also, where the art helps you to overcome self-doubt also, where you create something and then think, oh, all right, that's not bad, but just also, overcome your misery, overcome the problems of your life, bringing some color into it, bringing some light into it, bringing some aspiration and inspiration and so on into it, and all that without needing expensive paint, using natural materials, these things which are there anyhow, decorating the house, whichever is there, very much possible. And I emphasize that a lot because there is a psychological aspect there about our own self-worth, or feeling of self-worth, in the sense that we can grow into greatness without being great or without feeling that great. People who have a hard time, often they don't feel very great. They feel maybe they are losers, or they don't have much, they don't have achieved much maybe, and things like that. But so to be able to see yourself as this work in progress, which anyhow can grow to whatever you want to be, that is then psychologically very much helped by creating art. Even if you feel you are not so much an artist even, you can do that. And to fine-tune your art is a great work because, as I said, then you more work with the left side of the brain, which is where your emotional thinking is. And in that way, such art creation will very much help to remove any emotional imbalance. Like very often when I work with people, I ask them to sing something. And so when they sing something, in the singing, I can hear a lot about like what is their emotional issue and where they are there. And then by teaching them how to sing, my brother actually is also quite specialized in that, teaching them how to sing, you also teach them how to control in a finer way, in a more artistic way, you can say, your emotions. And that, okay, comes next to whatever more rationally I can teach them about their emotions. But to work with art in some way or other is very helpful to heal the emotions. So in that way, I'm very much a student also of Haris Johari, who was first and foremost an artist. No? He was an author, wrote 14 books, he made music, he made sculpture, he made painting. So teaching was more like a side thing for him. No? Being an artist was his main thing, and he also felt that society had to give a lot more importance to artists, a lot more power to the artists, let's say, because, yeah, he pointed it out very often. The rishis, the ancient seers that brought us all this knowledge, they were artists, they were poets, they were, yeah, teaching us in ways which would, yeah, last so many centuries or even millennia. So wisdom should not only come, let's say, in relatively boring words. It should be inspiring, and these words, anyhow, they can always be doubted. So, when you bring it in a more artful way, then you leave open a lot of room for interpretation, and the teacher does not have to be, let's say, the smart ass, the person who thinks he knows everything and he can explain everything exactly the way it is. Nobody can explain anything exactly the way it is. That is the truth, right? This is not possible. Everything, the moment we use words, becomes relative, and always some doubt can be there. But so if we can bring it in a little more artful way, say it in poetry, paint it, sing it, bring it in our smile, this is also, of course, part of it, bring it in our way of being, of behaving. This is actually the real teaching and the better teaching. And studying Indian art, we can also find there that the main objective of Indian art is to create some or other agreeable rasa, agreeable emotional essence in the people who are looking at the art or hearing the music or seeing the theater. And so that is very, very important also to understand. There can be a message, of course, but it's on the feeling level. It's supposed to change the feeling of the one who is receiving it. And in that change lies the true understanding, lies the true learning. So that also means that in Indian art, generally, it is not advised to give too much importance to the, let's say, unhappy rasas. They can be there, some anger can be there, some fear can be there, some disgust is hard, but okay, why not? Some sadness definitely can be there. But always then bringing it in a total package, in a total picture, in a complete song or a total painting or a theater where, in the end, everybody goes home with a good feeling and has, understood something which will last. Rational ideas, very hard to remember. They are too lengthy, they are too complicated, they are too intellectual. To speak really to the heart. That is the artistic way of teaching, and there's nothing against somebody who feels like expressing their anger in a painting, let's say. There's nothing against it, but we have to see that this is more a therapeutic kind of art then. This is useful for that person. Emotion requires expression, so definitely if you want to get rid of some negative feelings, then to express it somehow or other is very important, and that should be free. One should be able to be as negative as one wants, but then don't make it into a thing for others. Then you create it for yourself in the way of that they are thinking about art in India. That is then what is said. This art can be done. Maybe you show it to a friend, or maybe you show it to a person with whom you're angry to get the message through, something like that. But don't use it like for people in general to make an exposition. And you also see that so much in the West, because here art and marketing are so linked also. Then some artists is able to surprise everybody by making something extremely ugly, or like disgusting even, using, I don't know, rotting meat or something like that. Or just think of punk music. In the time I enjoyed it very much, because I was feeling that vibe that they were trying to bring across. But that was very negative. It was like a kind of anti-music. They're not trying to be beautiful in any way. They're trying to be quite rough. So that as I say, it brought me something, nothing wrong, but the main thing should be uplifting, bringing people to some better place. And when we do that, then we also have to very much recognize from where this inspiration is coming. I'm not saying Matangi or Saraswati directly, but the divine inspiration that comes from inside and is in that way non-personal. So there the ego of the artist also has to be watched very carefully. And for example, Harish Johari, he would never sign his own paintings. Like normally an artist, he will put his name on it. But Harish Johari never wanted to do that. And for example, Peter Weltevrede also doesn't want to do that. Sometimes some buyers, they say, I don't want to buy your painting if you don't sign it, because then, in my eyes, it has no value. Or the value is less. When your name is not on it, then maybe he will do it only for that buyer. But normally he is not doing it because he knows that this art, this is not Peter Weltevrede doing it, is not Harish Johari doing it, is something greater doing it, is something which belongs to everybody which is doing it. So that is important to understand, and in that way also to understand that everybody is an artist. Everybody who is able to be silent, be quiet, and then let something come out is an artist. And I feel in my life this is one of the biggest mistakes I have made in my way of thinking, is that until, I don't know, maybe 30, 35, I really thought myself as not being an artist. Like, I'm not good in painting, I'm not really good in playing musical instruments. So on that basis, I kind of thought, okay, I don't have that talent, I have other talents. So, but I always thought I'm not an artist. And only much later I understood, no, this is actually totally untrue. I'm an artist like everybody else. If I only allow it to happen, something will happen. And okay, it may not be a grain painting, but it may be something, and I can, make use of whatever is there. Some of you may have seen my rising sun, which I made in the garden here with some branches, and there's nothing much. No, I'm also not saying this is something very special. That's actually the whole thing also with Western art, is that art is only seen as valuable if you look at it and you feel, oh, that I could never make, like, but that's totally beside the point. No, art does not have to be something that other people look at and think, oh, I can't make that. Or they look at some art they see hanging somewhere in a restaurant, they think, oh, I could have done that also, it's nothing. This is a totally wrong way of thinking about art. The art is an expression that comes from inside. It does not belong to the artist. That's why Hari Johari doesn't want to put his name on it. So in that way, I've come to see myself also a bit as an artist in my own way, like maybe in singing also, or making something, in cooking. There are so many areas where you can be divinely inspired, really, like not try to too much conceptualize whatever you are doing, not staying in some kind of recipe, something very organized, something very rational, and something in that way very boring. But like give freedom to yourself to do something. Okay, maybe sometime go wrong, but it doesn't matter. No, the main thing is that most of the time it brings out a totally like new thing and a great dish, and a nice thing for people to look at. And my rising sun here, it doesn't have to be great in the sense that people think it's like something very special. For me, every time I look at it, it kind of makes me smile, and I think some people who will pass by and see it, they also think, oh yeah, nice. That's all which is needed. Nothing more. A little inspiration, no? A little good feeling that comes. And so that is the biggest error I think I've stuck with quite a long time. So please don't feel yourself also, I'm not an artist or something like that. You can do it, you can do anything, as long as you a little bit forget about yourself, no? And just let something happen and don't care too much for the result. In that way, it's also like a karma yoga. No? You have to like open up to it and trust it, and just let it happen. And it will come out great, and it'll have some value to you and maybe also to other people. Who cares? No? That's actually only secondary question. So this is Matangi, and you could say it's a little bit strange to put this in a more yogic perspective, but truly it is not. No? If you are going on the yogic path and you are more withdrawn, maybe somewhat from life, and meditating a lot, and doing other practices, then you also need that part. You also need some expression of whatever it is that you are learning, from whatever it is that you are experiencing in your deep meditation. How did the mantras come out? How did these stories come out? How did Bhagavad Gita come out? These are all things that are developed by yogis and are very inspiring to others and yourself, and supporting you, and making the journey worthwhile, and also especially on the emotional level much more efficient. Because the expression of negative emotion is one thing which is therapeutically very important. The expression of positive emotion also has tremendous value. It really opens your heart. Opening the heart chakra for me always has been the main job in spiritual progress. And art, music, singing, for me especially singing, it can help you so much there. I very regularly do singing sessions on my own. We're not allowed anymore to do it with the group. I hope that comes back someday. I mean, it will come back. But until then, no, I do it on my own, because otherwise it is just like part of my life, but also part of my practice is missing. This is part of my practice. And that emotional like digestion that comes through that really also then brings the possibility to remain happy whatever happens, you know. And so many of these songs and whatever it is, you know, that you're involved with art wise, they serve you throughout the day, throughout the week, whenever the mood gets a little bit more down, no? Then you can sing something, then you can watch something nice, then you can, you know, go in nature and see the beauty of that, and maybe find some branches and create something with that, and spend some time which is not, you know, like for business or money or anything like that, no, but enjoy, no, enjoy, and that, yeah, it's part of the path, so we should not forget that. And with that, I think I've more or less covered Matangi. So maybe there are some questions. Well, intuition, in a way, I should have used the word here before because, yeah, divine inspiration, Saraswati, Matangi, this is a kind of intuition. No? But intuition, of course, it goes a little bit beyond artistic intuition. No? Intuition can be about anything, can be very rational in a way, or about something very practical, or, you know, something like that. So, but it is always the same process. Intuition is something which comes not because we have thought about it for a long time or reasoned about it. It comes just like that. We see, no? And this seeing comes from the silence. This seeing comes from, you could say, the meditative state, no? Dhyana, meditation, actually means to see, no? So that seeing then brings a kind of expression which we can call an intuition, no? Projection is, I think, a very different thing, but maybe we are not understanding it in the same way, I don't know. But projection for me is more like a psychological process where we project our own story on somebody else's story. And in a way, it's the opposite of intuition, because it may feel like we see something, but we are not seeing it from the impersonal, from the pure self. We are seeing it from our ego, no? And we are interpreting whatever is happening in somebody through our own, like, concepts, no? Through the way we are seeing it, no? Like, for example, very often you do something, like, say, you help somebody without wanting anything in return. Very often people will then somehow tell you, you do want something in return. Because they cannot see it in any different way, because they themselves cannot do it in any different way, because they always expect something in return whenever they help somebody. Many artists, and nothing wrong with that, may really also feel like expressing something which is quite personal, which is from their own life, maybe something they remember, you know, whatever. But the way in which then they will do this can be either quite rationalized, personal, with a clear, like, agenda and a message that they want to pass on, or, you know, these days with a marketing target group in mind, so that they are sure to be successful with it. While the more spiritual artist, no, may take a subject which is personal, let's say painting the house where he grew up as a kid, no? But the way in which he will do that, that is something which may be also more divinely inspired, if he can, you know, open up to that inspiration, no? which is not easy. There's whole books written about that subject also, no? How to do that, how to teach yourself how to do that. There's different exercises that you can do to actually learn that. And yeah, not to overthink it, no? Just let it come, and then, oh yeah, a bird should be there because, okay, this may be a memory of bird song that was always there a lot when you were a kid, but still that idea, the bird, it may also come a little bit from somewhere deeper, no? Because it has a certain value, no? It brings something to the painting which otherwise might not have been there if you were only thinking about your target group. No? But it's certainly not clear cut, no? That is definitely so. And I also do not feel that it should be so much separated from your own experience, no? I very often in my classes like to talk about my own experience also, just to show, no, that there is a personal element there, and other people may have other experiences and even other opinions. And for some people, something which for me has been very important may not be very important. No? So in that way, I don't see any problem with it. The main thing is, I think, what is your state of mind? And that may be also quite different when you are painting than when you are like giving a class like now, no? To talk without thinking about it in advance. We have talked actually about the 4 modes of speech in another class, where I explained that the speech first comes as a subconscious feeling, then translates in a few words or one word, maybe one concept, and then in the mind we repeat that word and we put it in a sentence, we put it in a context, we put some reasoning around it, and only then we speak it. This is the long path, no? But when we speak more in a natural way, letting it flow, we kind of bypass these things, right? It comes directly from the heart. It is not premeditated so much, no? And in that way, okay, yeah, I try to prepare my classes so that I'm not like finished talking after half an hour, like actually happened last week. But not too much, no? Many of the things I have said now, I did not at all think to say them in advance, no? And so same thing, I think, and maybe more so when you are holding a paintbrush and you are creating something, there should be a freedom there. There should be, not too much, measuring before. No? As an artist, also when you make a painting, there are many things you could measure, no? To make sure things are perfectly aligned or in perspective or something like that. And I'm not saying that's not allowed, no? I'm just saying it has to be carefully done so that you're not disturbing what is really a process that goes beyond rational understanding. What I said about art, that it should not concentrate too much on unhappy emotions, no, is what is said about, no, the purpose of Indian art.
Right.
I'm not really giving any opinion. Our culture, if you look at how our cities often look, if you look at how people are often dressed, then you'll see a total dominance of dark colors. Gray, black, dark blue, especially in the clothing of people. That is very typical. Even in myself. I'm from the punk generation. Now, these colors, they actually belong to planet Saturn, they belong to the rasa of vibhatsya, of disgust, sadness also. So they are expressions of that, and nothing wrong. This came in response to a society where there was a lot of emphasis on looking successful, on looking happy, on looking, as if everything was going all right, while actually below the surface a lot of things were not going all right. So at some point that had to be brought out, and there had to be a bit more honesty and truth in that, and a bit more roughness, to show the real roughness of life, and maybe also of some social issues and other things in society which could be done in better way. So I'm not saying that is wrong, but generally speaking, if it is not uplifting, helping to create a better society, to create more social equality and so on, so then it's also no use. So we should work with these things, but try to make the end result positive, stimulating us, again inspiring us, and that is really all I wanted to say. But it is very important when we understand our culture, the predominance, very strong dominance of negative emotion, and especially disgust. Not really liking ourselves is very essential in our society. Then we get, like very cynical. Satire used to be there in very old times. This was a part also of creating a story which was funny, but at the same time also criticizing some things. That was satire. But when you are cynical, you're not just trying to be funny in order to make people see something and change something. When you are cynical, you are expressing an emotion of disgust, and you don't see any solution, you don't believe in any solution. And many of the people that are very popular in our culture, which we see on TV, which are being interviewed, that's what they are actually expressing a lot. Not only, fortunately, not only, but it's still quite dominant in our culture. So we have to understand that okay, it's good to see the truth, whether it is unpleasant or pleasant, right in the eye and not hide anything. This is also in this society with so many cameras in every home, also no longer possible not to hide anything. So it's good not to hide anything, but also not get confused by it and feel everything is wrong and everything is bad. No, try to inspire each other to lift the energy up, to push the energy up. I mean, just imagine that you are an artist and somehow or other you got very popular by making some art which is very ugly. There's many artists like that actually exist. I mean, ugly in the sense of showing a quite negative feeling. Then you're stuck with that. Then you cannot suddenly start creating something very beautiful. You will lose all your fans. You will have to continue to create this negative feeling in yourself, so that you can make new paintings or music or whatever. And some of those artists, they are known. They commit suicide, or they get into real trouble somehow or other. Because they are too much stuck in that. It happens to artists and famous people anyhow quite a lot. But if then you are stuck in this negative kind of art, yeah, even more so.